from the driveway up.
Coming to you from the University of Minnesota, Rochester,
Waiting now.
our town.
Don't think night's young. Let's go. NYC, Portland, Austin, Anaheim. Maybe not.
In recent years, issues facing transgender people have been the center of everything from pop culture to policymaking. Here in Rochester, an advocacy group called Southern Minnesota Transgender Support is creating a safe space for our local trans community. SMTS leader Mallory Heath joins us to tell us more. Welcome to our town.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So why is there a need for an organization like yours here in Rochester?
Well, our main goal is providing primary social support. There are a lot of trans people that when they come out, they lose all of their social support. They lose contact with family, with friends, spouses, children, and that's what we try to replace as best we can, is, be there for social and emotional support.
Are there certain types of activities that you do or that are closed off, or are there other public events that you might do?
We mostly do just private events. Our group is very focused on providing support for its group members, and being that we have group members in all stages of transition, there are some that aren't very comfortable with public events. So we try and be really mindful of that and focus more on private events for just group members.
But you yourself, as a leader of STMS, have done some community work, and recently you were part of the bioethics at the cinema screening of The Danish Girl. Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that opens up community dialogue? Yeah,
I was invited to be on a discussion panel after the showing of the movie, along with my fiance and two psychologists from Mayo that specialize in gender issues. I think it was really great. I think we had a lot of good discussion from both, the panel to the audience and the audience to the audience. So yeah, I think that those sorts of things are really great. It's been my experience that most people have a lot of questions that they don't know how to ask. And I think it's important to have these environments where people can have room to ask poorly worded or poorly thought out questions with, then being just given an answer or explained why that might not have been a good question to ask.
So you're a pretty young organization. Are you finding that there, there's a lot of interest, that there's a lot of people coming to contact you that are wanting that safe space?
Yeah, absolutely. In the time that I have been with the group, we've probably tripled or so in size. So it's a fairly, it's a pretty large population that's growing. We just, when I started, had just the sort of generic support group, and now we have a genderqueer non-binary group and a transmasculine group, all which meet separately.
And does one of them meet at the library?
Yes, our genderqueer non-binary group meets at the library the first Thursday of every month.
And while privacy is really important, how do people get involved and how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, we have a public Facebook group, which is kind of our sort of main, contact point. So if you just send a message to the main public group, one of our leaders will get back to you.
And do you work with some other organizations? I know there's the Mayo Clinic, Transgender Specialty Care Clinic. Are there other organizations in town or institutions that you work with?
Yeah, we've been making inroads with other LGBTQ plus organizations in town. There isn't any official capacity or anything to that. It's just, we are trying to be, part of the community and bring our whole community as LGBTQ plus people closer together.
Sure, and actually Rochester just had its own sort of Pride celebration last weekend. Were you a part of that at all?
Yeah, a couple members of our group were part of the planning for that, and were part of several different events that happened for it. And
so Rochester, it's a small place, but are a lot of the people that are coming in, are they residents, or are they transient and they came here for care, or what's the population look like?
At least as far as our group is concerned, almost all of our group members are local. We have a couple from neighboring states or ones that live, in towns nearby. We have a couple people that we've made special cases for where they live far away but have some connection to the group and don't have a good support system where they live, so we're let them in the group, but we really try and focus on our local area more so.
And as we wrap up here, can you tell us maybe one thing that we could be doing as a community to be better trans allies?
That's a big question. I mean, I think that the most important thing is to be aware that the trans experience doesn't have an analog with the cisgender experience, that there isn't a thing that most cis people have experienced in their life that it's like, oh, that's exactly like what it's like to be trans. It's a very unique and singular experience, and when somebody that's trans tries to tell you something about it, just listen. It's okay to admit that you don't understand what they're going through, but trust that what they're telling you is true.
Well, thank you so much, Mallory, for joining us, and good luck with the rest of your planning for the organization.
Yes, thank you so much.
Our Town is brought to you in part by the following amazing people and organizations:
the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota,
and the members of KSMQ Public Television. Thank you.
Grok sounds like something you might put in between the tiles in the bathroom. Guy Finne is coming up in a bit, and he'll tell us why Grok is so much more interesting than that. We learn about the important contributions the Bach family made in the music scene in Rochester in 1908, and we travel down the trait tree with Danielle Teal in our Walkabout segment. But first, Genome, Unlocking Life's Code, is at the Rochester Art Center in this week's Our Culture segment.
The reason that we were interested in bringing the exhibit here to Rochester is because the Center for Individualized Medicine is a translational center. And part of what we are trying to achieve is help translate the research and the science of genetics into clinical practice. Hi, I'm Kelly Fee Schrader, and I'm an education coordinator for the Center for Individualized Medicine and the Assistant Director of Special Events for the Genome exhibit. Medicine is both a science and an art. And we also wanted to incorporate art elements into this as well. We're hoping that through the stories that are told, through the art, through the videos, and the other elements that are being featured, that we are telling the story of why this is important and why this matters. Everybody's going to take their own story away from coming through this exhibit, whether they just want to learn about what is DNA, what does it look like, how did this come about, to how does this relate to all of us in the natural world, to the impact on health and disease and treatment. People might come away thinking about how they perceive genetics and genetic conditions differently. And the different art exhibitions that are being featured focus on individuals who have different genetic diseases or conditions, reminding us to look at people as individuals and not as a disease or a condition. I think it's important for people just to understand that this is going to have some relevance for their health and their health care. The exhibit is interactive, and so you can push buttons, you can take part in the Genome Zone, which is an activity space where kids can do projects and art projects. And they can do a thumbprint and make a thumbprint flower and start thinking about those elements. And there's another art display within the activity area called Jenga that is built on the concept of the game Jenga, and where they can build blocks and think about some of the elements related to how DNA is organized, kind of thing. And so it really is for all ages. I think that the art provides another element for how people learn. and it helps people see how people have had genetic conditions for as long as there have been people. And thinking about what does this mean for diagnosis and again for treatment as well. We felt it was a great opportunity for Mayo Clinic to feature some of the patient stories about how genomics is being applied in clinical practice. No medical center has ever sponsored this exhibit before. We felt this was a perfect opportunity to bring this to Rochester, a highly medical community, helping to increase genomic literacy and help people understand what does this mean in health and disease. And we felt that by bringing this here, we are providing that opportunity for our community and our patients to see that. There are opportunities for children growing up thinking about what careers might they be interested in as they get older, because as the science of genomics expands and as it becomes more integrated into clinical practice, we're going to need more and more people to practice genomics in the clinical practice. So nurses, bioinformaticians, genetic counselors, geneticists, even computer programmers to help us understand all the data that people get from genetics. So it really does impact a lot of different areas, and I think it's exciting for families to think about this from the standpoint of health and disease and treatment, but also kids to think about this from the aspect of what do I want to be when I grow up.
Our Town. It's all about you, Rochester. Send us a picture of your favorite feature of Rochester. Rochester at KSMQ.org.
Maybe it's just left turns off familiar streets. I just wanna come back with a memory. Growing up doesn't mean getting older. I don't care.
The Diversity Council will be holding their annual celebration on Wednesday, August 1st. Across Generations is the theme this year, and it's a chance for them to thank all the amazing individuals who helped them work toward their mission. Local food trucks are providing the eats, Indus Beats and Desdemona are providing the beats, and an award ceremony hands out the treats. Yeah, the rhyming's a little corny, but it's gonna be a good time. And it's free. For more information, check out their Facebook page for all the details. And calling all cool cats and hip chicks, it's Social Steps Swing Night on Friday, August 3rd on the Peace Plaza downtown. Kick up your heels with an evening of classic and modern swing music featuring East and West Coast swing, the Lindy Hop, jive, and some foxtrot. No partners required, and it's free. And a great workout too, I'm sure. Dance lessons are from 7 to 8 p.m. and open dance is from 8 to 9:30 p.m. B5. Under the B5. Yeah, it's bingo. You might think this game is only for the more experienced members of the community, but the Rochester Eagles Club welcomes all ages to play. Check it out Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Saturdays at 1 p.m. It's a classic. And if you're really old school, check out Days of Yesteryear, August 11th and 12th at History Center of Olmsted County. Live steam tractors, oat threshing, straw baling, butter churning. Life on a farm in centuries past was a lot of hard work. Rain or shine, the activities begin at 9 a.m. Olmstedhistory.com for all the details. Coming up next, Danielle Teal finds herself in the branches of the trait tree in this week's Walkabout segment.
Hi, I'm Danielle Teal at the Rochester Art Center, and we're exploring the Genome exhibit and something called the trait tree.
This was a really fun project where we went out into the community, the Rochester community, and we asked people to volunteer to share their information about 4 physical traits that every person has. And it's whether you have a widow's peak or not, do you have dimples or not when you smile, can you curl your tongue or not, and are your earlobes attached or not. And with those 4 traits, there's 16 different combinations of them. And everybody falls into one of 16 groups. And so we were able to get photographs of over 400 people from the Rochester community and information from all of these folks. And we've created this fantastic display on the wall that features all the people that we have taken photographs of, and so when people come to see the exhibit, they can follow the algorithm or the trait tree down by the questions and see where do they fit in which group, and how similar are they to different people and how different are they. We also have an electronic kiosk in the entrance that if people want to electronically add their portrait to the electronic database that's just kept internally, they can sit down and take their picture and see where do they fit on the trait tree as well.
The trait tree is actually a ton of fun, so let's check out which group I reside in. I do have a dimple. When I smile, I can curl my tongue, my hairline is not pointed, and my earlobes are attached. So I'm officially in group 3. And if you want to find out which group you reside in, you can come on down to the Rochester Art Center.
With all the changes afoot in Rochester, workforce development continues to be a major priority. This guy right here will tell us how higher education is set to play a big role in the future of the city's workforce. Stay tuned.
Our past, remembering what made us who we are today. Brought to you by the History Center of Olmsted County.
The Bach Music Company owes its creation to a broken pump organ. Reinhold Bach Jr. accepted the organ as compensation for a mechanical repair job. He fixed it and sold it for profit, opening his first music store in Owatonna in 1892. Rochester's location opened in 1908. Selling instruments was not a stretch for Bach. His father founded the Marion City Band, and family members performed with the Rochester City Band, from upright pianos emblazoned with the Bach name to sheet music and vinyl records. The company offered a variety of products. When Bach died in 1923, his brothers Adolf and Arthur took over. Adolf invented a clamp for holding together newly re-glued violins, and both brothers saved the store from closure during the Great Depression by selling household appliances. The store remained in the family when David and John Bach took over in 1943. Like their predecessors, they were inventive in finding new ways to generate income. When Schmidt Music Company arrived in town in 1971, the family decided to sell and close its doors. It was the last Bach Music Company store.
It's estimated that 70% of Minnesota jobs currently require a post-secondary education, yet only half of working-age adults hold a degree past high school. And even here in Rochester, where our employment base consists of over 70,000 skilled workers, many with advanced degrees and expertise in the sciences, we're facing an aging workforce, a shrinking youth population, and a growing gap between worker skills and job requirements. Education, particularly higher education, is poised to play a major role in addressing the city's workforce needs. Guy Finne, Vice Chair of Greater Rochester Advocates for Universities and Colleges, joins us today to tell us more. Welcome to our town, Guy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Wonderful. So Grauk, you just taught me how to say that,
yeah.
Grauk,
yeah, Grauk.
has been around for quite some time. Can you
Correct.
tell us a little bit about the history of the organization?
So Grauk was created in 1987, and the Cliff Note version of this is Grauk was created to advocate and promote higher education and post-secondary needs. There was 3 phases that Grauk's really been focused on. The first one was just assessing what we had here for higher education assets, what we had, what we didn't have, and what we needed to have. And then we started to engage them in helping them to market themselves. The next phase was the University Center of Rochester, and Grauk played as the catalyst to bring those education organizations together to talk about co-locating themselves at the Rochester Community and Technical College campus. And then while that was going on, we upped our game in the advocating part and really started to have conversations with our local and state elected officials in terms of what's happening here with higher education, what needs to happen, and what kind of funding that we're looking at. And then the third phase was really UMR, University of Minnesota Rochester. We sit right here, very exciting times for Grauk, as they were really front and center in some of those conversations and convincing the state that we needed this campus here and helping that happen. And we continued to up our advocating with continuing to find new funding streams for our higher education institutions, such as local sales tax dollars. And now we're embarking on our 4th phase, which is the new Partnership Council that's going to expand and increase the table for Grauk's conversations.
Wonderful. And so this fourth phase. Can you tell us a little bit more about the expanded vision, the sort of reorganization that's been going on recently with the organization?
Yes, my pleasure. So what won't change, just very quickly, we will continue to advocate and we'll continue to promote our current higher education assets that we have in this community and within this region. What's going to change is we're going to be more deliberate in our connecting. It's really going to be workforce focus. So our mission is Grauk will meet the workforce needs of our region. In order to do that, we need to be a little bit more intentional and deliberate in our conversations between our education assets as well as our employers, and make sure it's a two-way communication. The other piece that's going to change is within that partnership council, we're going to increase the table. We're going to make the table bigger. We're going to invite some other folks to that table. In the past, primarily, we've worked with our three public institutions, Rochester Community Technical College, Winona State University Rochester, and then UMR. And we cherish and value that relationship, and we're going to continue to cherish and value that relationship moving forward. But we're going to open the table to others. You talked about post-secondary education. That's a big, long scope of different types of programs. We need them all at the table talking about workforce needs and making sure the investments are in place to meet that workforce needs, whether it's private colleges, whether it's training programs that are tied to our trade skills, military training, AIM, apprenticeships, internships, mentorships. It all will be included.
All of that. That's quite a lot of work that has to be done.
Yes.
And you also do some work through K through 12. So I think a lot of times we think about higher education and sort of that pipeline, but there's also, you know, the cradle all the way through college, that part of it as well. What work are you doing in that role?
So there's two things I like to talk about that's really connected to K-12. One is something that I'm very excited about, and it's C-Tech High School, which completed its second year and getting ready for its third year here. And it's something that this community has talked about for a while. In fact, when the community was asked to reauthorize the sales tax, that was one of the reasons why the community supported it. When we heard back from the voters, they were happy and excited to see the C-Tech come forward. And the response from the students has been amazing. I mean, we're already talking about how do we expand C-Tech. And career and tech education, you know, that's something that was lost over the years in our high schools, and now we're trying to bring it back, and that's a great thing. And the newest conversation that's happening right now is AIM, apprenticeships, internships, and mentorships. A lot of interest from our employers about doing this, but we need to figure out how do we get it done. I've been in this work for 25 plus years. I've heard this conversation over and over and over, but it's never really gone anywhere. And with Grauk, we're going to be intentional and purposeful in driving that conversation forward, bringing the right people together, and really making AIM happen.
How do people get involved with Grauk? I'm sure you have a board, but are there other ways that the community can get involved, give feedback?
Yeah, so in our new model, we do continue to have a board, but it's going to be a smaller board. We had a 24-member board before, something like that, but we're going to shrink that down to 12, and that board will run the operations of the program. The new piece is the Partnership Council. And the beautiful thing about the Partnership Council is there's no limitation on the numbers of members that we can have. So we invite folks who feel like they have a piece to say about the connection between post-secondary education and workforce needs. Whoever's in that arena, we welcome them to that table. We have a website out there, www.grauk.org. We'd love to have people come and learn about us, and the Partnership Council membership application will be out there for them. And if they have any questions, they can contact me personally, and I'll have a cup of coffee with them.
And you also do some work with businesses and industry. How do you, I don't know, how do you work with them? How do you connect the institutions that the higher education institutions that you're working with the business and industry in the community?
So the connection will happen at those Partnership Council meetings. So that's where we have, it's like a think tank that's going to come together on a regular basis, and we'll have business briefs. We'll have the employers come in and let us know what are the needs. And the challenge with that is you have to have these conversations all the time because they change, right? They're dynamic. We live in such a dynamic world in terms of what our workforce needs are. And so we need to make sure we let our education friends know what those are and then help them be flexible and make some changes so that we make sure we have talent heading in the right pipelines for future careers.
Sure, and dynamic is a really great way to put it. I know we talk on this show and just out there in the community a lot about the growth of Rochester, where it's going, the future. We're sort of propelled towards that, the future vision of what things are going to look like here.
It's an amazing time.
It is. It's an amazing time to be here. And do you have some specific workforce needs that you're particularly passionate about or really thinking about bringing awareness to?
Yeah, so obviously, I work for Mayo Clinic, so I have a passion about healthcare, and that's where I get my checks. So I need to represent healthcare. And healthcare, today people ask me, what are the healthcare needs? And I say, tell me a career, and chances are we need it. So the needs in healthcare right now are all across the board. I think about our desk operation folks who greet and meet our patients as they come in for their appointments, make sure their day starts off on the right foot, make sure they're greeted friendly at a moment that's kind of concerning for them, right? We need folks like that all the way through all the nursing, LP, LPN, RN, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, physicians, our research labs, our medical labs. It never ends. But along with that, because of DMC and the work of Journey to Growth in Southeast Minnesota together, we're trying to diversify our economy so that we're more than just healthcare. So manufacturing is going to grow, construction is going to grow, agriculture, hospitality, all those sectors are going to create career opportunities. And so within the umbrella of GROUC, we need to make sure that we're very diverse in our conversations and we represent all of those workforce needs.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Guy.
You bet.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us here from the University of Minnesota, Rochester. It's an exciting time to be here in Rochester, and we're glad to keep you up to date on all the things that are going on.
Our Town is produced by KSMQ Public Television, nonprofit, non-commercial. Please help pay for this programming by making a personal contribution at ksmq.org. Thank you.